Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to dedicate some minutes to a concept, an Islamic concept, named Al-Hijra, means the migration. Um, in our societies, usually people do not go to live in other places if their original place or birthplace provides a decent place to live, school, university, workplace, family. So people remain in the country which they were born to, and they live there because they know the culture, they are part of the culture, part of the place. And migration to another place is not the first option. Of course, if people miss something, school or a house or workplace, they migrate to other people, to other places. But this is the second best option in general. In Islam, the picture is a bit different. In Islam, the Islamic thinking actually follows the Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad, in his birthplace in Mecca, he was persecuted, he was humiliated, almost being murdered. So he migrated to Medina in the year of 622, 10 years after he started his mission. And in Medina, his place of migration, he became the ruler. He became the master of the city, the commander of the army, definitely upgrading from what he suffered in his birthplace in Mecca. So the conclusion is that the migration is actually something which enables the Muslim to turn his status from persecuted, suffering in his birthplace to be the master of the place in the place which he migrates to. And this actually is embedded in the Islamic doctrine, in the Islamic way of thinking. And this is why migration in Islamic societies is viewed not as the second best option, but probably the first best. Means that if you can go, if you have the ability, if you can take your family and to migrate to another place which is not yet Islamic, this is good, because there, with other Muslims who will migrate with you, you can create a new community, you can build a school, you can build a mosque, you can build an Islamic madrasa, whatever. So Islam will settle in that country as well. And this is good, because Islam spreads itself, or wants to spread itself all over the world, as a part of the raison d'etre of Islam. So migration in Islam is viewed in a much more positive way compared to Western societies. People do not understand it or do not know about this, but this is the situation. And actually what we see today in Europe is more or less this thing. Of course, those millions who came to Europe, or most of them, ran away from failing states like Libya, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, and Iraq, of course, or Lebanon. And they migrated to Europe in order to survive, in order to get shelter, in order to get health care, education to their children, normal life. Yes, definitely. Most of them migrated in order to save themselves from the atrocities of those failing countries which they were born in. But once they come to Europe, they start settlement in Europe, means to be rooted in Europe. They don't come in order to stay there for a while until things get better in their homelands. They come in order to stay. They build mosques, they build schools, for Islamic schools. They build madrasas and Sharia courts and halal food and all these things, and turn churches to mosques. They buy them, and taking over the public sphere in large number of people who pray in the streets, mainly in order to bring the message that here we are, this is our place, and we'll do here whatever we like. And this is actually what happens. That the hijrah, the migration, is actually a means for Islam to spread itself in a peaceful way, which will be accepted little by little. Of course, it takes time, and this is also okay, because there is a verse in the Quran which says that Inna Allah ma'a sabirin, means Allah is with those who have patience. And they have patience. Taking Europe over, or Western Europe over, can take 50 years, 100 years, who cares? But finally, Western Europe will be Islamic, and what we see today is already implementation of this idea in neighborhoods like Barbès, like Saint-Saint-Denis in Paris, and in other places in Molenbeek in Brussels, and in many other neighborhoods in Britain, in Western Europe, Northern Europe, means the Scandinavia, and other places as well. So this is why we have to understand that hijrah is actually something which is meant behind the scenes, but not always behind the scenes, to spread Islam all over the world, and this is actually what they do. I highly recommend this book, Al-Hijra, means migration, which was written by Sam Solomon and E. Al-Maqdisi. I'm not sure that these are real names, maybe Sam Solomon. And of course, look at already the picture is the Trojan horse. So it already gives you a good idea about how hijrah, means migration, is meant to bring Islam in a peaceful way to countries which would not allow Islam to come to those countries in a belligerent way. So here we are. This is what we have to know, and to open the eyes and to open the minds to the changes which Europe goes through. And I'm afraid that the Atlantic Ocean is not wide enough to save America, or North America at least, from this fate of Europe. Because what we see today, the Islamization and the settlement of Islamic organizations in North America, reminds us very well about what happened in Europe like 15 or 20 years ago. So if you want to have an idea how America and Canada might look like in 20 years from today, look at Europe today. Because America and Canada are behind Europe in a time difference of like 15 or 20 years in this regard. So if the Americans, North Americans, do not watch it, North America will have the migration of Europe in 20 years in North America. So with this note, please, this is a good food for thought for legislators, for public affairs, people who deal with public affairs, and actually every citizen in America to learn from the experience of the Europeans. Because if you don't beware, this will be your fate. Thank you so much.